is investing in quality employees and quality curriculum and materials, quality facilities. The more you put in, the more likely you're going to get something good out.
But when it comes to the teacher's side of things, when you're really looking after so many kids, it's really hard to have that individual observation without tools.
Leaders have to stay at a strategic level and delegate those tasks that are repetitive that could be done by a software.
Hi there, and today we have an amazing show for you all. We have two very special guests, Marnie Forestieri, the CEO of Young Innovators Academy, and Tim Seldin, the president of the Montessori Foundation. And we're really excited to talk about a lot of different topics, from actually the business management of managing your school to educational philosophy. But let's start with finances, because while loving kids and education is definitely the heart of a school, the fuel that keeps the lights running is finances. So I would love to ask you guys, what are the biggest financial factors that make or break a preschool?
Well, the obvious issue is to first off be comfortable with money. Yeah. A lot of people who get involved with education feel like money is dirty. It's like talking about sex or poo-poo. You can't do that. You have to have a healthy relationship with money and not be ashamed. Whether you're a nonprofit or for-profit, it's about more than money. You know, you're not simply doing it to have the maximum bottom line. Your school is not going to be any better than the raw ingredients that go into it. In other words, investing in quality employees and quality curriculum and materials, quality facilities. The more you put in, the more likely you're going to get something good out. So we have a saying, money follows excellence. But the other thing is, you yourself have got to understand how to read a spreadsheet. You have to understand how to read a financial report. You have to understand cash flow. And the other thing is, so many of us in education feel guilty at the idea of charging what it costs to do the job right. And so we identify with parents who are struggling financially to be able to afford to send their children to our center. And so many people, men and women, have to ask themselves, if I've got a child, can I earn enough money? If I don't stay home and raise the child myself, can I earn enough to justify the cost of childcare or the cost of some kind of private school? In our country, the United States, the simple fact is the government is, for the most part, not going to pay the price of education. Or if they do, it's going to be a small fraction of what the true cost of excellence is. Go through the exercise of saying, if money was not the problem, what would it look like?
Yeah.
And what would it cost to do that? And what we tell people is, figure out a budget for the school that you have now, if you were doing it right, which may not be the ultimate school of your dreams, which might mean a whole different building and a whole different land, but start with what you got and ask, okay, if I could pay my people what I think they really deserve, and if I could pay myself what I think I'm really worth, and if I had the facilities or whatever, what would it cost? Then assume you will not be full. Assume there's going to be a vacancy rate. And that could be caused by a lack of marketing, which would be stupid. I'm a great believer in aggressive, paid marketing as well as social media and unpaid guerrilla marketing. Mm-hmm. And you definitely don't want to plan to have vacancies, but things happen. People move. People get in car accidents. The bottom line is anything can happen. We all went through COVID when large numbers of families all of a sudden couldn't come to our schools, our centers. So you've got to have a plan for the unexpected. Everyone who has an apartment building or a series of rental homes plans for a vacancy rate. You don't want it. You want zero vacancy. But you plan it in your budget. Then plan for the unexpected. You need a safety margin. Mm-hmm. I would say 5 to 10% minimum for an unexpected emergency fund. And I would also say to you, if you don't spend that fund, don't spend it. Don't take it as invest it back in your business. So the idea is create a bigger and bigger and bigger emergency fund that you can either use to get you through the next pandemic or the next unexpected hurricane or fire or flood, or the next opportunity to buy that school that opens up and comes on the market. Because if you don't save for it, you're not going to have the money for it. So that's my first thing. The next thing is you have a projected number of children. My advice is if you've got a center with a capacity for 150 and you're assuming you're going to have a 90% occupancy rate, and those 10% of the spaces won't get filled or won't pay the bills or whatever, then divide the total cost of running your school with the safety margin and everything else, divide it by your number of children. In this case, 135 children. That 135th is one child's share. Instead of selling your center by the half day, the 2 days a week, that's garbage, in my opinion. First off, it's not good for kids. Very good for families. For them, it's convenient. If they want to come in by the hour, and if that's the service you want to offer, it's fine. But my advice to you is children do better with consistency. Yeah. If you want an example of that, just imagine a household where the mother and father are separated and the child is spending one night with mom and one night with dad. Consistency works. So if you're going to send a child to a center or a school, consistency is better than not. Yeah. And it doesn't cost any less to have a child there full day versus half day, because you still got to pay the staff, you still got to pay the building and the electricity. And so whether the child is snapping at your center or not, he's using one share of the facility, the whole program. So my advice is set your tuition high, and then you've got a margin. I'll add one more margin in, which is my we'll call it my financial aid budget. Yeah. So what my parents did back in the 30s is they said, okay, this is what it would cost to do the job right if everyone was paying the same thing. We know they can't all afford that. So I'm going to give away 1/3 of all the income we get to families that really are in need. And we'll do that on some kind of scale basis so that everyone is paying until it hurts. In other words, we want everyone sweating. Yeah. We want them to have an investment. On the other hand, we want to do as much good for families that normally couldn't afford this as we can, and we don't want to patronize them. Yeah. We want them to be equal partners. We want to value them, just as you want children of color to be educated by people who look like them, that come from their culture too. We want families of more modest means to feel like they're not getting a free ride. They're paying their way in some way that gives them dignity. Yeah. And so we up the tuition yet another 33%. So we drive it right through the roof. And then we know, just like the colleges in most places in the world, you've got a stated price, and then you got the real price that many families are really paying. Mm-hmm. What you want to end up with is a total bottom line that allows you to sleep at night. Yeah. You want to be able to pay your bills and feel that you can pay your teachers what they're worth, that they can pay their bills, and they're not going to leave you because they need to go work at Starbucks at night just to be able to pay for the car.
And Marnie, I'd like to pass a different question to you, and that is, you've operated preschools in many different communities, many different types of schools. And, a question that a lot of providers have is what separates the schools that have a wait list versus the schools that don't?
Well, I would sum it up to one word: quality. I think that when the best marketing differentiator of a school is their internal operation. The reason we've been successful is because we're very careful and carefully crafted all our operations and systems. And when we make a mistake, we fix them. So I think that when you have that word of mouth marketing happening for you, and then you see your marketing spending drop because you don't need to do it as much, I think that's the biggest difference. Parents become your advocates, and then you don't have to worry so much about bringing new families in the door because the existing ones do the job for you.
So word of mouth still unbeaten in the marketing
Absolutely,
game.
Especially with with millennial parents and the generation that follow. They trust is a peer-based reputation because they believe more in what their peers are saying than when the marketing channels communicate.
Moving on to educational philosophy, Tim, I wanted to ask you, let's say you couldn't see the name of the school. How do you know if you're walking through a Montessori school?
Well, we say that 3 things make a Montessori school. The first is every single group is led by a trained, certified, experienced Montessori educator. Now, in the real world, you may lose a teacher and you may have someone leading a classroom who is in Montessori training. And it is a program that normally lasts 12 months to 2 years. On the other hand, and those teachers need a lot of support. But at the very least, you want someone who knows what they're doing because you can't fake this. This is not a weekend workshop. It takes a lot of training to be able to be a Montessori educator. The second is the classrooms are set up as Montessori classrooms. And there are official Montessori suppliers. There's a very specific set of Montessori materials for every age group. The whole thing is set up as a Montessori program. And that includes not only the physical environment. So, for example, in Montessori, you would normally never see a bulletin board. You don't want any visual distractions. You don't want 20 different versions of a child's art project on the wall. This is nothing but visual noise. What we want is something that looks like a home. It should look timelessly beautiful. So you won't find a smart board. You won't find a bunch of kids running around at early childhood operating on tablets normally. I mean, you could. I mean, Montessori is not a franchise. So if you're running a Montessori school and you want to do that, you can do that. But we would argue that young children in particular learn best from 3-dimensional objects, not from digital devices, which doesn't mean that they won't have digital devices. It's just they don't give much feedback. They're not great in comparison with real world objects. The third thing is you have a community of Montessori children. So if you and I went out, if you're a Montessori teacher, Oliver, and I hire you and I go out and buy a bunch of Montessori materials and I set it all up and we bring in 30 children, age 3, 4, and 5, and they've never been in a Montessori school before, I can turn that into a Montessori community. But I'm going to have a heck of a ride because they don't know what they're doing. So ideally, what we do is we step by step by step create the culture of the Montessori environment, ideally by gathering 10 children age 3 and running them for a year by themselves and learning how to do it. The next year, hopefully we keep the same 10 and we bring in another 10 3-year-olds. Now we have 20 kids, 3 and 4. And the 4-year-olds will teach the 3-year-olds how we do it. And there's a whole process that really good Montessori educators use at any age levels to reintroduce children to the school. For example, at this time of the year in the southern part of the United States, when Montessori schools are going to be opening up in another week or two, ideally the teachers are going to show up, and instead of setting the room up for the children, they will invite the families of the class that are returning to come in with their children and let's set up our environment together. This is a children's house. This is not your classroom. And that concept that All the furniture is their size. Everything has a place. Everything is logical. That there's a very specific way everything sits on the shelf, where it's like a Montessori classroom is like a three-dimensional map. Every single child can see the sequence of curriculum from age 2 through about the 5th grade in a 3 to 6-year-old environment. So for them, it's very child-friendly. It's very logical. It's like a really beautiful workshop where everything has a place, everything has a correct name. The kids know how things are done. This is our class. We run it. We know how things are done. And so we end up, after 3 years, we've now had a 3rd year. We've got our original group of kids who are now 4 and 5. Now we bring in a new cluster of 3s. And now every year we're rolling a new group of 3-year-olds at the bottom.
So Montessorians have now been, a thing for over 100 years. Mm-hmm. And as we go on now in the 21st century, I'm very curious to know, Tim, what Montessori principles do you think should be protected and which ones do you think should be adapted?
I just wrote an article for our magazine, Tomorrow's Child, about what's new, better, and different in Montessori in 2025. The answer is very little. I mean, the reality is there are digital devices. Our teachers are generally using them to keep records. I mean, for example, this podcast is being sponsored by Illumine. And Illumine is not specifically Montessori software, but it's a really powerful tool to help teachers to record observations, to take pictures, to be able to send reports home. And I admire that part of it. I think ultimately all Montessori-specific software will do similar things. But I think the bottom line is there's nothing that I've seen that a tablet can do for a 3, 4, and 5-year-old other than show a video of a gecko or something like that, that you wouldn't be better off having them do in real world time. I mean, ideally, Oliver, if you come into one of my classrooms, a kid's going to come up to you and introduce themselves, a little 3, 4, 5-year-old, and say, "Hello, my name is Tim. What's your name? Would you like to see our classroom? Would you like to sit in the observer's chair and watch? Would you like a cup of coffee?" Mario Montessori Sr., who was about 50 at the time, went to a classroom in Holland one day. And a little girl, about 3 and a half, came up to him and said, "Sir, would you like a cup of coffee?" And he said, "Yes, I would." So he's sitting there and he's observing, he's watching the class, and half an hour goes by and he thinks, "Oh, little girl's forgotten me completely." Half an hour later, a little kid comes over, she's got a tray, she's got an espresso pot, she's got steamed milk, she's done everything herself. It took her that long to do it. But it's her class. And that whole idea of a children's house, to me, this has got to be protected. The minute a Montessori school gets into workbooks and worksheets and phony baloney, cartoons and other gimmicks thinking that they're somehow going to make it more relevant, this to me is silly. I don't want anything plastic. If a child drops a plate, I want it to shatter. I want there to be a consequence of their action. I don't want kids to die. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to protect them from things that will hurt them. But I want to teach them how to first off cut up a soft object like a banana with a little butter knife or one of those little curved knives that we use to spread cheese, because that's not going to cut them. And we train them how to do it correctly. And as they get older, and we start introducing to steak knives and paring knives, which you will find in a Montessori classroom usually, or real needles and real sewing, or real irons and real ironing.
Right.
We want to teach them how to do it correctly. Yeah. So the whole idea is step by step by step, teach them how to do it for themselves.
Yeah.
So I think, we're all in agreement that, putting kids in front of screens isn't really a great idea, I think, right? But when it comes to the teacher's side of things, when you're really looking after so many kids, it's really hard to have that individual observation without tools. And so I wanted to bring you in, Marnie, to the conversation to see what is it actually like on the ground, because you've been a director, you've been a teacher, to keep track of so many kids when we know that observation is so important.
Well, the core of the curriculum and individualized instruction begins with observation skills. Back in the day, when we were on the ground, you had to have a paper, a portfolio, and keep all these notes. And it took a lot of time, and it was very, not only time consuming, but, we forgot to write a lot of the details down. But thanks to technology and Illumine's features of how to capture and document portfolios for children, that makes it so much easier for practitioners in the field, because you can go take a picture, document it, write a voice note, and have that moment frozen in time forever inside a platform. So that is what keeps the individual lesson plan on track. So those technology tools are so valuable for today's educators, because it allows us not only to adapt, but to tailor the experience to the child.
So I'm going to, as a thought exercise, see if we can all put ourselves in the teacher's role here. And, we want to use and leverage data with tools like Illumine to personalize, our children's, learning journey without turning our schools into testing centers. So let's say you guys are back in the classroom. How would you leverage a technology tool to make you a better educator?
Well, I want to hear him.
Yeah.
Well, first off, I happen to believe in the use of technology by the teacher 100%. I mean, somewheres on my body I have a smartphone, and I don't know where it is at the moment.
Make sure you get it back.
The bottom line is, when I'm in a classroom, I'm using it all the time. I never hold it in front of my face. I do not want a child to think, pose for a picture. I want them to not know I'm taking video or taking still photos. But I'm creating, in the course of a 3-hour work cycle, and by the way, that is a normal, uninterrupted work cycle. So a big difference in a Montessori school and a typical school is the day may be planned out into 5 to 15-minute blocks. Now it's poetry time. Now it's social emotional learning time. Now it's the art corner time. It's not the way we would do things in Montessori. But what we've got is 30 kids in a room, and we're taking pictures, we're taking videos. And what I appreciate about what modern technology allows us to do is, facial recognition. It knows this is little Johnny Jones. It can accumulate a portfolio. You can double check that it didn't mistake Sally for Johnny. You can decide, you share it with the parent. This will assemble it into a report. And what every parent in every school feels like, I haven't got a clue what's going on with my child all day, because they come home and I say, well, what did you do all day? And they say nothing, or, Johnny hit me or something like that. And so the more we can help them to get some sense of what's happening, recognizing that some parents want to know everything and other parents won't even bother to open the email. The bottom line is, we want to do our best to communicate with them in a way that they can understand it. And I really appreciate how easy it is these days. The other thing is AI, when it's trained wisely, and that's something that I really appreciate that the people at Illumine have done, is they've trained their artificial intelligence engine to understand an early childhood educator's perspective. This is not just random stuff that they're throwing out. They know what we're trying to communicate. And the ability to either hand type or voice speak some basic notes. I saw Oliver get into it with Marnie, and they were wrestling on the floor, and they were doing this, that, and the other. And how easy it is to say, okay, take these notes and turn this into a coherent, reasonable, factually based incident report. Or let's write a letter to a parent saying, we just want to let you know how interesting Oliver's morning was. It just makes it so easy to come up with a first draft that almost always, while I wouldn't just turn it loose, it's like having a personal assistant, a graduate student assistant, who is really bright. You got to check their work before you let it go out, but it's just an incredible time saver.
More proper, yeah. Oh.
So what I'm hearing, and please correct me if I miss anything, but having a tool like illumine, an AI assistant, essentially allows teachers to let all these more mundane tasks of perfecting the message be done by a machine that is pretty good and quick at it, so that they can focus on having more one-on-one observation, more of an ability to do their job. And
I would go further.
Yeah.
You asked me about Montessori. We talked about how incredibly well-trained Montessori educators are, and they're incredibly busy. I mean, the curriculum is so big, and there's so many kids, and you got them for so many years, and it's not easy to be a Montessori educator. Illumine is not designed specifically for Montessori. Most early childhood centers are struggling with high turnover, a staff that may not be that technologically savvy, high stress, lots of things happening. What I appreciate about what the company has done is they've created the equivalent of the Apple computer operating system. It is so user-friendly. It is so easy to learn. It's so easy to use. And it does so many different things. It's really one of those very few software solutions that actually stands out from the crowd. Mm-hmm. And I'm not in the software business, and I don't work for illumine. What I notice as an educator and a teacher educator and a researcher is this is one of the few products that I've seen that I actually think could make a child care center director or a child care group leader or an assistant who's sitting there at 5:30 at night with a group of kids and needs to make a report about what just happened to little Sally who spilled paint all over herself. It is so user-friendly that I think it's really one of those watershed developments. This is good software, and I really appreciate it.
And so I'm seeing a lot of benefits. I'm seeing benefits for the teachers because they have more time because a lot of their tasks are being automated. I see a benefit for the parents because these messages are a lot more clear than the teachers who were struggling to write up notes in the past. I see a benefit for the students because they have a lot more of their teachers' attention. So now I want to pass it over to you, Marnie, because one of the other things illumine does is automates a lot of the tasks that child care center owners have to deal with. And I want to talk to you about how do you think that can really make the life of a child care owner more simple?
Well, in terms of automation, if you don't have any automations set up in your center, well, you're probably putting a lot of more hours. So this is a time-saving tool that because leaders have to stay at a strategic level and delegate those tasks that are repetitive that could be done by a software. So illumine offers the opportunity through the CRM to automate emails and a lot of this task that fall into the category that might be forgotten by somebody. If you give it to me, I will probably forget to automate or call somebody. So having those automation tools is a very important part of the component of the software.
And I think any childcare owner can use more hours in their day to go to themselves. So I think I really want to thank both of you for your time today and really appreciate all the really thoughtful comments you all had. And thank you to you, the viewer, for spending a little time with us. Have a great rest of your day, and stay innovative.